The film begins with the sudden outbreak of a deadly virus that transforms more than half of the human population into zombies. In response, the remaining survivors establish an anti-zombie city built in the middle of the ocean. To ensure no one can enter, they block off all bridges leading to the city. However, only the wealthy and armed soldiers are permitted to reside within its walls, while those without financial means are forced to live in the slums, separated by nothing more than an iron fence. These people must stand guard around the clock to prevent any zombies from breaking through. As time passes, the residents of the anti-zombie city begin to run low on supplies. In an effort to solve this issue, they fund a group called the Scavengers to build a heavily armored vehicle equipped with advanced weaponry. They name it Death Reckoning, a machine designed to navigate the zombie-infested city while scavenging for resources. One day, a man named Riley and his companion, Mike, are surveying a zombie-inhabited area when they notice something unusual. Some zombies are exhibiting strange behavior. Among them, one zombie in particular appears to be more intelligent, seemingly organizing the movements of the others. Fascinated and alarmed by this discovery, Riley names this unique zombie Big Daddy. As Riley and Mike prepare to report their findings, they're suddenly startled by the unexpected arrival of a mysterious and terrifying figure. However, it turns out to be their friend Charlie, who nearly gets shot by Riley in the confusion, as he was mistaken for an actual zombie. Shortly after, Riley meets a man named Cholo, the leader of their current mission. Riley warns Cholo about the intelligent zombie, Big Daddy, emphasizing the need for extreme caution to ensure no one is lost during the operation. It seems that Riley intends for Cholo to take over as the new leader of the Scavengers, as Riley himself wishes to leave the city and seek a safer and more comfortable place away from the zombie threat. However, Cholo refuses the offer, revealing that he plans to move into the anti-zombie city soon, as he has secured connections with one of the wealthy elites inside. As the plan unfolds, fireworks are launched to distract the zombies, allowing Riley and the Scavengers to enter the zombie-infested city and gather supplies. However, in the midst of their mission, Riley's female companion, Joanne, suddenly reports that the fireworks mechanism has malfunctioned. Realizing the imminent danger, Riley orders the group to retreat before they become surrounded by zombies. He urges Cholo and his team to withdraw immediately, but Cholo disregards the warning. Instead, he proceeds with a separate mission assigned to him by his wealthy connection inside the anti-zombie city, retrieving a selection of expensive liquor from a large store. At first, Cholo is thrilled, believing that if they complete this mission, they will finally be granted entry into the elite city, free from the dangers of the zombie-infested world outside. Without warning, a zombie suddenly appeared and nearly bit Cholo, though he managed to fend it off just in time. Realizing that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, Cholo ordered his team to quickly gather all the supplies and leave. Unfortunately, just as Mike was about to collect the supplies, a hidden zombie lunged at him from beneath a table and bit him. When Riley arrived, he immediately shot the zombie and attempted to save Mike. However, Mike, aware that he had already been infected by the zombie virus, chose to do the unthinkable rather than transform into one of them. Following this tragic event, Cholo and his companions hurriedly fled, leaving Riley behind. Meanwhile, Riley commanded the remaining Scavengers to evacuate the zombie-infested city before more lives were lost. Unbeknownst to them, Big Daddy and his horde of zombies were secretly following their movements. Back at the Scavenger base, after Riley and Charlie had completed their mission, Riley sought out Cholo. Enraged, he confronted him, blaming his selfishness for the needless death of young Mike. However, Cholo dismissed Riley's accusations, insisting that such risks were an inevitable part of being a scavenger. He further revealed that he no longer cared about the group, as he was on the verge of moving into the anti-zombie city alongside the wealthy elite. Riley attempted to warn Cholo, explaining that the rich would never truly accept someone like him, as they had no concern for the poor. Later, As Cholo prepared to deliver a package to his contact inside the anti-zombie city, he unexpectedly encountered a frightened servant. The servant claimed to have heard strange noises coming from one of the rooms. Upon investigating, Cholo discovered a distraught woman who explained that her husband had been behaving oddly. It quickly became evident that her husband had been infected with the zombie virus. Even worse, he had already bitten their son. Faced with no other choice, Cholo was forced to eliminate them both to prevent the further spread of the infection. Meanwhile, in the slums, Riley sought out an old friend named Mulligan. At that moment, Mulligan was rallying a group of people, planning to storm the anti-zombie city out of frustration over the way they had been treated as second-class citizens by the wealthy inhabitants. Despite their anger, Riley urged Mulligan and his followers to reconsider, warning them that the heavily armed soldiers guarding the bridge around the clock would make any attempt to infiltrate the city impossible. For the sake of their safety, he advised them against taking reckless actions. Shortly after, Riley went to retrieve a car he had purchased from a man named Chihuahua, only to find that it had mysteriously disappeared. He had arranged to pick it up that very day, meaning he had just been swindled out of all his hard-earned money. Wasting no time, Riley made his way to an underground entertainment venue, where zombies were cruelly used for amusement. The venue hosted gruesome spectacles, including fights where individuals with personal grievances were pitted against captive zombies for sport. Moments later, Riley encountered a dwarf-sized man named Chihuahua, the very person who had sold him the car. Without hesitation, Riley demanded that Chihuahua return his vehicle, warning that if he refused, Riley would ruin his entire entertainment business. Hearing this threat, Chihuahua promised to locate Riley's car. However, unbeknownst to Riley, Chihuahua secretly ordered his men to get rid of him. He even armed himself, ready to eliminate Riley for interfering with his affairs. As Riley scanned the area, he noticed a woman being attacked by zombies. Without a second thought, he fired at the creatures, saving her but also causing complete chaos. Seizing the opportunity, Chihuahua launched an attack on both Charlie and Riley. Despite Charlie's intimidating yet foolish appearance, he was an expert marksman and managed to shoot Chihuahua as he attempted to escape. Meanwhile, Riley rushed to rescue the woman, who had earlier shielded him from Chihuahua's gunfire. Unfortunately, before they could escape, the police arrived. Since Chihuahua was actually a wealthy and influential figure, Riley, Charlie, and the woman, whose name was Slack, were arrested and sentenced to severe punishment. Inside the prison, Slack revealed that Chihuahua wasn't just an ordinary small-time criminal. He was, in fact, a powerful underground boss known as Mr. K, the man who controlled the entertainment industry. He had countless subordinates, including the very police officers who had captured them. Curious, Riley asked why Slack had been involved with such a dangerous man, leading to her being thrown into zombie fights. Eventually, she confessed that she had been working with Mulligan, deliberately getting close to Chihuahua to find a way into the anti-zombie city. When Slack inquired why Riley had dealings with Chihuahua, he explained that he had purchased a car from him, intending to use it to escape north in search of a place free of zombies. However, Chihuahua had scammed him. Upon hearing this, Slack requested that Riley take her with him, as she was fed up with her current life. She assured him that she would be a valuable ally, revealing that she was a former soldier. However, before making any plans, they first had to find a way to break out of prison. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the people inside the city, Big Daddy and his horde of zombies were nearing the anti-zombie city. These zombies were intelligent enough to wield knives and other weapons, allowing them to break through the wooden barriers protecting the city. Elsewhere, Cholo finally met with his wealthy acquaintance, Kaufman. At that moment, Cholo immediately told Kaufman that he wanted to live inside the anti-zombie city, specifically in one of the luxurious new housing developments Kaufman had built. Cholo reminded him that he had worked for him for a long time without ever asking for anything in return. Tired of living in the impoverished slums with its low-quality food and dangerous proximity to zombies, Cholo demanded that Kaufman provide him with a home inside the city. Unfortunately, Kaufman could not simply give Cholo a house, as many wealthy people were already waiting in line for a place in his newly built residential area. This angered Cholo, and he threatened Kaufman, warning that if he wasn't allowed to stay, he would destroy Kaufman's business. As Cholo was about to leave, Kaufman secretly ordered one of his guards to eliminate him, as he no longer had any use for him. However, Cholo anticipated this betrayal and managed to overpower the guard, taking his weapon in the process. Determined to take matters into his own hands, Cholo gathered his men and declared that they would steal Death Reckoning, a heavily armored, weaponized vehicle stored at the military base. He planned to use it to attack Kaufman's residence within the anti-zombie city. That night, as Cholo and his crew prepared for their mission, they remained unaware that a massive horde of zombies had already reached the city gates. The military forces were soon overwhelmed as they struggled to hold off the advancing undead, their numbers far too great to contain. Amidst the chaos, Cholo and his men infiltrated the military base, seizing Death Reckoning. Without hesitation, they crashed through the zombie-infested streets, plowing through the undead and escaping the besieged base. Following this, Cholo contacted Kaufman, informing him that he had successfully taken control of Death Reckoning. He demanded that Kaufman pay him $50 billion in ransom by midnight. The money was to be delivered to one of Cholo's men waiting across the river. If Kaufman failed to comply, Cholo threatened to use the vehicle's long-range missiles to destroy Kaufman's headquarters. Realizing the severity of Cholo's threat, Kaufman had no choice but to free Riley from prison. He then tasked Riley with eliminating Cholo, offering him a generous reward in return. Riley agreed, but set his own terms. He demanded a vehicle, a supply of weapons, and provisions for his journey. Upon hearing this, Kaufman immediately agreed to these conditions, and Riley wasted no time in ensuring that Charlie and Slack were also released, as he needed their skills for the mission. As Riley and his team prepared, one of Kaufman's subordinates arrived with a squad of elite soldiers, Foxy, Jennifer, and a towering man known as Pitbull. These reinforcements were assigned to assist Riley in his pursuit of Cholo. Not long after, Riley and his team arrived at the military base, expecting to find signs of Cholo's attack. However, to their surprise, there were no soldiers in sight. Riley found it suspicious. Cholo alone couldn't have wiped out the entire military presence. Determined to investigate, Riley and Foxy searched the camp while Charlie and the others looked for a functioning vehicle to use in their pursuit of Cholo. As they worked, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching them, despite the apparent emptiness of the area. His instincts proved correct. Just as everyone was preoccupied, Charlie suddenly fired his weapon at Slack, but not to harm her. He had spotted a zombie lunging at her from behind. In response, Slack instinctively turned and fired as well, taking down another zombie that had crept up behind Charlie. On the other hand, Riley and Foxy finally arrived at the soldiers' camp, where they were shocked to find that almost everyone there had already been infected by the zombie virus. Wasting no time, after securing weapons and ammunition, Riley immediately ordered Charlie to get out of there as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, while on the way, Foxy was bitten by one of the zombies. Without hesitation, Slack shot Foxy, knowing that if they left him alive, he would turn into a zombie and endanger everyone. At that moment, Riley recalled a painful memory. He shared that when his younger sibling had been bitten by a zombie, they had only lasted about an hour before transforming. Left with no choice, Riley had to eliminate his own sibling to prevent them from turning into a threat. Meanwhile, inside the Death Reckoning, Cholo instructed his men to be ready. Midnight was approaching, and if Kaufman failed to transfer his money, Cholo would declare war, regardless of Kaufman having an entire army at his disposal. Moments later, when Cholo asked one of his men if Kaufman had sent the payment, the subordinate reported seeing no sign of anyone delivering the money. With no other option left, Cholo prepared to launch an attack on Kaufman's building. Unbeknownst to them, one of Cholo's men suddenly heard movement outside. Initially believing it was Kaufman's emissary bringing the money, he went to check, only to be ambushed and devoured by zombies. Big Daddy and his undead horde had finally reached the coastline. However, to reach the anti-zombie city, they needed to cross the vast stretch of water. In a surprising turn, Big Daddy leaped into the ocean and mysteriously vanished beneath the waves, returning to Riley, who successfully tracked the Death Reckoning using GPS. As its original designer, he had secretly implanted a tracking device inside the armored truck. Without delay, he instructed Slack to drive them to its current location. Upon arrival, Riley told Slack and the others to remain inside the vehicle while he confronted Cholo, hoping to reason with him and prevent further bloodshed. At the same time, Cholo also noticed Riley's approach, so he ordered his men to open the doors, allowing them to speak face to face. Initially, Riley believed he could persuade Cholo to stand down. However, Cholo was already aware that Kaufman had hired Riley to stop him. With a smirk, Cholo declared that he had no intention of backing down, no matter the collateral damage. His rage against Kaufman had consumed him entirely. At the same time, the zombie horde had found their way across the ocean. By walking along the seabed, they emerged on the other side and stormed into the city. Without delay, Big Daddy and his undead followers began their ruthless assault on the residents. However, Kaufman, oblivious to the chaos unfolding around him, remained preoccupied with counting his wealth. Meanwhile, just as Cholo was about to launch a missile at Kaufman's building, Riley secretly used his remote to deactivate all the missiles. While they were arguing, Jennifer suddenly arrived and started shooting at them, giving Riley the perfect opportunity to reclaim Death Reconning from Cholo and his men. On the other hand, Kaufman was still unaware that an army of zombies, led by Big Daddy, was now rampaging through the city. Instead, he was preparing to flee with an enormous sum of money, believing that the fires outside were caused by Cholo's attack. Moments later, Kaufman received a call from Riley, informing him that he had successfully taken control of Death Reconning and had stopped Cholo. This left Kaufman utterly confused, wondering who was truly behind the chaos in his supposedly secure anti-zombie city. Realizing that the city had been breached by the undead, Riley decided to take Death Reconning back into the city to help fight the zombies and rescue any survivors. Unfortunately, Cholo could not accompany them, as he had unfinished business with Kaufman that he intended to settle. Although Riley and Cholo were not exactly friends, they had fought against the undead together for a long time. They had even saved each other's lives on several occasions. Before departing, Riley tossed Cholo the keys to the car he had been using, mentioning that there were still weapons and ammunition inside. However, as Cholo and his companion, Tom, approached the vehicle, Cholo was unexpectedly bitten by a zombie, an undeniable sign that his time was running out. When Tom instinctively raised his gun to end his suffering, Cholo surprised it by insisting that he lower his weapon. He wanted to experience what it was like to become one of the undead. Before he fully turned, Cholo ordered Tom to take it back into the city so he could exact revenge on Kaufman for betraying him. Using a secret passage he had often utilized, Cholo made his way into the fortified city one last time. Meanwhile, inside the city, the remaining citizens were desperately fighting off the invading zombies. Unfortunately, the horde led by Big Daddy was far more intelligent than any undead they had encountered before. These zombies not only worked together, but had also learned how to use weapons. Within minutes, the undead overwhelmed the entire area near the waterfront. Then, as Big Daddy noticed Kaufman's towering skyscraper, he felt an inexplicable pull toward it. Without hesitation, he commanded his horde to march toward the building and attack everyone inside. At the same time, Riley and his team arrived at the bridge. He began lowering it to allow Death Reconning to enter the city. But before they could proceed, a swarm of zombies appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the truck. Realizing the danger, Slack shouted for Riley to get on top of the truck before the undead could reach him. Without hesitation, Riley climbed onto the vehicle while Joan used her weapons to clear the zombies blocking their path. Elsewhere, the impoverished citizens who had been trapped between thousands of zombies and an electrified fence had nearly given up hope. Just then, they heard the sound of fireworks coming from Death reconning. Believing this to be their chance, they hoped the noise would distract the zombies, giving them an opportunity to escape. However, they soon realized to their horror that Big Daddy's army was not fooled by the fireworks. The undead remained focused, closing in on the helpless people and beginning their gruesome feast. Meanwhile, when Kaufman realized that the zombies had managed to break into his building, he and his assistant quickly planned to escape using the car in the basement. However, just as his assistant was about to open the door, Big Daddy suddenly appeared. Overcome with fear, the assistant panicked and ran frantically. Big Daddy then attempted to destroy Kaufman's car using a fuel hose, but after failing to do so, he decided to abandon the attempt and instead pursued the fleeing assistant outside the basement. Realizing that Big Daddy had left, Kaufman swiftly grabbed a weapon from his bag. When he saw a figure emerge from the darkness, he immediately opened fire, assuming it was Cholo, seeking revenge. However, Kaufman failed to realize that Cholo had already turned into a zombie. Meanwhile, when Riley and his group arrived at the settlement, they were devastated to find that they had come too late. Nearly all the residents had either turned into zombies or been devoured. Left with no other choice, Riley ordered Charlie to launch a missile at the horde of zombies. At first, they assumed that no one had survived the attack led by Big Daddy. However, they soon discovered that many people had managed to endure the assault, thanks to Mulligan's leadership. Mulligan, who had experience fighting zombies, had successfully guided a group to safety. There, he declared his intention to reclaim the city from the undead and transform it into a new anti-zombie refuge, one that would welcome all survivors, regardless of their wealth or status. Inspired by his words, Riley resolved to help Mulligan in his mission to eliminate the remaining zombies. However, Riley suddenly noticed Big Daddy and his group of zombies leaving the city. It seemed that Big Daddy and his horde had only sought revenge against those who had once attacked their kind. Realizing that Big Daddy was merely an intelligent zombie wanting to live peacefully with his group, Riley decided not to interfere with them any further. With that, Riley gathered his friends and set off toward the north, hoping to find a safe haven far from the undead where they could start anew. And with that, the story comes to an end. Moral lesson from the story: if you think living in a fancy ocean city will save you from zombies, remember that even the undead can swim, and they don't care about your money. Also, even the smartest zombie knows teamwork better than humans, so maybe stop being selfish and share the snacks.